live stream and not really sure how to do it. So, and we're going to try it. So here we go. Anyways, this is Karen, and I'm an injured worker, and I'm here to talk about National COSH, which is the National Health Network that is, speaks up and fights for our safety, and they have people all across the country, and they're associated with unions, and so they're all basically standing up for our rights. I'm hoping you can hear me there. Well, anyways, we have this Facebook site where injured workers have networked across the nation together over the last, 5 or 8 years. The site's been around for a while. It's called Workers' Compensation Stories, and you should look it up on Facebook. Every worker should learn about the work comp system and how it works, and if it's going to be there for them or not. Anyways, you need to know how to navigate it if it does happen. And this is the perfect site to get some answers, solutions from people who have walked the walk before you. But while I'm there, we also have injured work comp attorneys that are there, and there's one of them who I befriended before while I was there, and I'm back now. Hello, everybody. But I'm back to continue to tell my story and sing my song for minimum federal oversight that we've been needed since 1972. And so this lawyer, his name is Ken Morton Gomez. He's a work comp lawyer out of California. He's been a part of our group, Facebook friend me. He said, why don't you, for a long time, he's also with the farm workers. He's kind of associated with them, or tied in a little bit. And he's been trying to help me ever since I said we were felling 400 injured farm workers there in the state of Washington. So he's always told me, well, why don't you get a hold of this person? Why don't you get a hold of that person? All the people tell me to get a hold of, brother, are ended up being union leaders who don't want to put our issue on the table. And the National COSH, they don't want to help it. WILLIG, the National Lawyers Association, says we need it, but they won't fight for it. And therein lies the rub. Therein lies the problem for America's injured workers. We can't fight Alec, who created this war on us, and we've lost 15% of our national grand bargain nationally. 15% of our benefits at workers' comp over the last 5 years, which is a trend that has continued for the last 10 years, yet National COSH doesn't want to address our federal human rights issue. And I'm sorry, National COSH, if you're going to make a video about COVID, and this union guy who also, that's the other thing, is the work comp lawyer, Mr. Gomez, told me I should contact this lawyer, or this union man from the garment workers union in out of LA, and his name is Alex Sanchez. So I friend him on Facebook, and he ignores me. And that's been the problem for the last 8 years. They do not want to put the American injured workers' minimum federal standards on the table. And I have to ask these union representatives and National COSH and Mr. Biden, is it really equal? If somebody dies in the job in America from COVID, a COVID-related job on the death, that one job, one human life is worth way less than it is in one state than it is in another. Well, the work comp chop chops, they get to give us $35,000 for an arm in Alabama. Well, they give $750 for an arm, amputated arm in Georgia. Will that same inequality continue to exist with the COVID-19 laws that you're putting forth? And when they have no minimum federal standards and there's no bite behind them, and when you haven't put forth the National Workers' Compensation Commission that we've needed, Mr. Biden, since 1972, because you, sir, have been around that long. And tragedy, sir. So it's really frustrating to me when injured workers are going through some tragedies, and some of them may not be that hard, but some of it is a psych war because we're not being given our Band-Aid. And then we get continued with another psych war as we get costed off to SSDI. And you're not addressing the issue. Yet I'm getting men with guns sent to my home because I am sending faxes as I'm forced to be my own delusional lawyer in the SSDI system at this point in time for an overpayment that was not my fault, as the record clearly shows. If the evidence would ever get forth, but there ain't. You have no named agents, federal agents like SSDI Bill here in the Everett, Washington, who seems to get to make decisions, and his friends before him handled the appeal before this, and then nobody uses their names. They denied me, then I had to wait and go for Bill, and then we got to go through Bill, and then after I'm done with Bill, now I'm doing a hearing that I may get to an ALA judge, who I've asked to please watch these videos, especially the one where SSDI Bill sent the FBI to my home over the faxes I was sending. Well, I'm sending faxes because I have restraining orders at every SSDI office in the nation. How am I going to get my voice heard? We can't get lawyers to represent us. So we have to fight per se. And if somebody like me who's locked out, and then they want to lock me out of sending faxes, how am I going to communicate my issues in the facts to the judges who need to hear to render decisions? But anyway, I'm kind of drifting off, and I do that at times, so I apologize. My main focus tonight, though, is it's very frustrating for this COSH network, and Jessica, who runs it, and the other lady, I can't remember, Melissa or something. I've emailed these people several times. They've closed me out of their Facebook. Willig has done the same thing. Some of the people, Jennifer from Willig, I think it is. And then you got Jessica from COSH. All these women have turned their backs on me as I have stand up as a man in this country whose father was harmed, whose father-in-law was worked to death on the job, basically worked to death by Walmart, the state of Washington, and Sedgwick, the private state work comp insurance. So, generationally, I've been harmed by that, and nobody wants to stand up and put the issue on the table. That I was told by Patty Murray and Senator Sanders and Tom Perez when he was in head of the Labor Department that we needed these minimum federal standards when they wrote us a letter in 2015. Then, just in 2020, we were told again we needed these minimum federal standards by the bilateral commission that the Congressional Research Service. Smart people from both sides is also telling us that workers meet these minimum federal standards that Sanders has remained silent about since he ran for 2 presidential bids, as I begged for him and his people to put it on the table. But his people, like Jason Call for Congress and Bernie Kratz, Tyler Vega, all tell us their priorities are Med for All and whole Washington said not your injured workers issue, because they told us to vote for their entrenched Republican work comp lawyer like Scott Staffney. Something's not right here. Something is awry. And when victims of this abuse stand up and speak out, and National COSH claims to get our voices heard, but yet I've been singing out, crying out, as my mental health therapist has to sing instead of, bang, 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 and that's what I'm trying to do, but National COSH does not hear our voices. They try to silence those workers seeking minimum federal standards that we've needed since 1972, and now there was a congressman out of California, Baca, in 2011, he put forth a bill, HR something, I can't remember what it was, for a National Workers' Comp Commission. We didn't get it. And then, like I said, in 2015, Sanders says we needed it again in the letter, but then only wrote the letter, but never gave us lip service on the human rights issue that needed to be addressed. As his chief basically said, hurrah for Med for All, go away with your issue, Darren. And now we've lost on their issue. We might get some hearing aids. We're not even getting the dentures now, apparently, with the reconciliation that they're going through. So, I was told by Med for All advocates and whole Washington advocates in my state, one of them, Tamburini Borelli, who turns out to be a Trumpster, that we don't need your minimum federal standards. And all along the way, people like Call for Congress has told me no. And as people like Senator Patty Murray have remained silent. As Pramila Jayapal, who I begged upon to help, who told us, yeah, I agree. She told me in a letter once, or whatever, I forget what is it, an email, she said, her people basically told me once that yes, she agrees with federal oversight and yes, we need it. But she has never helped with it since then, and she ran on Med for All and whole Washington, and she's joined up with our revolution, endorsed with them. She hangs out with Tyler Vega and Jason Call for Congress and Kashmir Sawant out of Seattle, our socialist, supposed to be the labor voice. And the Democrats pop her up as our socialist labor voice, but this socialist labor voice, as I have begged her to speak up for injured workers across this nation and our needed minimum federal oversight, has said nothing and has actually spit in my face and screams Medicare for all at me when you have failed on that. And now, over that same time period, we're learning from the insurance companies that the injured workers have lost 15% nationally on their benefit over the last 5 years. So it's egregious to me as an injured worker, as I have these COSH network and this union person, that Alex Sanchez, that Ken Morton Gomez from the Workers' Compensation Stories Facebook page, which is an awesome page, it's getting our voices heard more than COSH is. I can tell you that much. COSH tries to silence injured workers. You don't try to amplify our voices or fight for our minimum federal oversight that needs to be on every lawmaker's table. It should have been there in 2011 and stayed there. Should have been there again in 2015, but everybody chased rainbows instead of listening to one of the victims in your own communities crying out for some minimum federal standards because he was being hurt and harmed by a system that's broken and needs to be fixed. And the federal government told us Washington State is one of 32 states expelling its injured workers in the NPR report and the letter that Senator Sanders and OSHA wrote. So why is nobody addressing this human rights issue? Why is the injured workers issue put to the back burner by our unions when the weakest worker among us is what our unions are supposed to be representing? Our issue should be your priority, not your last priority. And if COVID has taught us anything, our union brothers and sisters in National COSH, is that some minimum federal standards are in need here, especially if somebody might get, I don't know how much for a body in one state and not for the other state. I do know you get 35 for an arm in one state and 750 for another. And so the life, what you get paid for a life in Alabama is going to be drastically different than what you're probably going to get in New York City. And that's egregious. A life should be the same price anywhere in the United States of America if you're harmed or hurt on or by our job. National COSH and our union and the AFT, National Teachers Union, and Crystal Grange, our labor voices are supposed to be speaking up for us, of UCOM Radio, Labor Radio. Then we got Tom Hartman, who claims to write books and make money off writing about inequality in this nation, yet when injured workers cried out for him to put the minimum federal standards on the table, he acts cooler. Gee, Jared, I don't know what you're talking about. And now, 8 years later, since 2015, 5 or 6 years later, Tom Hartman is still making money off his inequality books, but not saying one word about the minimum federal oversight for America's injured workers. Why? Tom's a small businessman. Why does Randy Rhodes not do it? Our independent journalists are all small businessmen. Why do your state lawmakers not do it? Because they're small business people. When you run for office, you become a small businessman. You side with them. And ALEC, who's the American Legislative Education Council, who put forth these bad ALEC-made state med tort and work comp laws that is putting people to the homelessness that we're seeing today. And they've done it over the last 20 years. They've implemented bad state med tort and work comp laws, medical tort laws and work comp laws, which they use these doctors to harm us and hurt us, and then grant them immunity. This is a class war being waged on us through our health care. And COSH, National COSH, Mr. Biden, you need to wake up and hear us, sir. Have a good day. It's egregious to that. Oh, there's one more thing about the National COSH and my union brother, Alex Sanchez. Go union, brother. I'm all for that. But as you're driving your vehicle and you're representing National COSH and you're representing the unions and you guys are making a video about COVID safety, could you please park the car, brother, if you're going to be a safety representative for this nation and talk about safety as a union rep. Yet you can't say one word, as I begged about you before you went on this COVID little visit. Your question wasn't done, you're going to put some minimum federal standards on the table, was it, Mr. Sanchez? And that's what your question needs to be, Mrs. Jessica from the COSH Network, who's the director of it, lives in California too. Y'all sit around snicker at Mr. Fonso as he has begged for your help, but to address an issue that harmed his father, worked his father-in-law to death, and put him and his family through hell for what's been a decade now, and I'm continuing to put through egregious and have FBI men with guns sent to my house. Luckily, the man was a nice guy, and so was his partner, and they could see that what's going on is egregious, and that what I have written in my faxes was nothing threatening. This is harmful when we got government agents able to harm the citizen, but the citizen can't take any regress for the harm done. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. National COSH, you need to speak up. And my good work comp lawyer friend, Mr. Gomez, I gotta have his name here. I don't want to butcher his name here. Anyway, he's the work comp lawyer out of California. Gosh darn, I lost his name now. Ken Martin Gomez. Yeah, Ken, let's fight for the workers. Let's get us some federal oversight, but let's get these union buddies of yours and friends of yours from the work comp community and those that are running the National COSH, let's say, to get honest about a war on injured workers and the needed minimum federal oversight. That's what Rosa Calderon called it when I've asked her about it. She agrees it's a war. And we actually have an article out of in these times that's called The War on Injured Workers. Besides, we have the demolition of workers' comp from NPR. Not like our stories haven't been told. Our stories have been told. We've been told the solution. We got Newsy, who's got a 2-minute clip that they put out in 2015, but they went silent on. All the liberal networks started to tell us about it, then all of a sudden went silent in 2015, like somebody told them, shut up while everybody's running for president was we're trying to get med for all in 15 an hour. Your issue can't be on the table with all our issues. Yet you've lost on your issues, and you've told us to fuck off with our issue for almost 8 years now, and I'm calling foul on National COSH, my local Democrats, my local, on up the line. The Republicans are one thing, and I understand. I will have to fight them with minimum federal standards. They are business folks. That's the side they represent. My side is supposed to represent humans and workers and unions and patients' human rights more so than the other side puts profits before human lives. My side, Mr. COSH and Mr. Union Man, and even, I shouldn't just pick on this young union guy because he's trying and he's trying to do what he can, but don't be led by the nose, brother. Don't be a teamster led by the nose. Be one that stands up and fights for us and speaks up for the others. Otherwise, you don't need to be there. We need somebody who's going to take some heat and tell the truth. Not come back to us and say this is all we can get. 15% takeaway over the last 5 years, as we have begged for you to fight for and keep that 15%. And if anything, get us another 50. Not suffer from a takeaway because you've been silent little pussy fancies. Lying, conniving, because you didn't want to get honest. Humans in your community are being purged to the streets to die in our work comp and SSDI system. That nobody's helping us or getting us any lawyers to where we can fight this shit so that we're not being harmed and hurt. And in my case, 8 years for SSDI. I should have been given that shit with 2 years out the gate, and that should have been my backup when the state work comp system failed me. Our SSDI systems is where we turn to next because the other ones are fucking us and failing us, so we got to go to SSDI. And if it takes 2 years, and some people get it, but the majority of us have to take 2 and 3 and 4 years at getting it because we keep getting denied it. And if they would just give it to us the first 2 years out, they could have given us the tickets to work and some of us would have still been viable. But when you put us to fucking hell for 8 years on end, mental health, jails, institutions you have drugged me through, and you hand me a pension, and then you keep putting my nose through SSDI with revals and overpayments. This is not a lifetime pension. Mr. Mike Sells, he's the union guy here in town and my state representative, and Larry Brown of the Washington State Labor Council says, gee, Darren, you got a lifetime pension. Things should be fine. No, they're not. And I'm here to tell you, and National COSH, and my good new union friend, Alex, what's his name? Let's give him credit here. Full credit from the Garment Union in L.A. His name is Alex Sanchez. Rock on, brother. You gonna fight for us, then fight for us. Don't ignore us and then claim you're getting our voices heard. Because that is hypocritical. And that's not how unions are going to help us. Unions hurt us when they don't speak up and amplify our voices for the weekend a month. Have a good day. Remember, none of us is immune from an on-the-job injury, and COVID has certainly taught us that. Does. Have a good day. Minimum federal standards. It's just basic human rights, like we have a basic minimum wage, and that's not too much to fight for. At least fight for it, educate people about it the way we do Medicare for all and 15 an hour and all our other issues. We can even fight for prisoners' issues. Prisoners to get rights to vote. But when an injured worker wants you to put their human minimum federal rights on the table so we're treated equal. And so that women are treated equally in workers' comp. We get a 10% less than us males do. My balls are worth more than women. How about that, you women folk out there? How about that, Jessica from National COSH? You will talk about it in California on the state level, and you'll help that state lawmaker, I can forget her name, Gonzalez, is her last name, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, who has fought for gender bias in the work comp system, and our Governor Newsom, Democrat governor, canned what she'd been working on for you all in that state. So your state fix didn't work for your gender bias when you need a federal fix for gender bias on a federal level, but Jessica from National COSH won't tell you that. Jennifer from Willie won't tell none of us that. And Larry Brown from my National Washington State Labor Council, he won't tell us that either. And the AFT, Randy Weingarner, he's not going to tell us that either, as they claim, anyway. No, you don't have our backs when you don't speak up and fight for our rights, our human rights, and workers' rights, our human rights, and injured workers' rights are the most important. It should be our union's first priority, not the last priority when we're talking about medical and all this other stuff. Let's make sure we're taken care of once the master has used us up and thrown us out when we're used and disposed with no good to them no more. Let's address that issue. Not let this homelessness keep rising as they keep purging us in the street, as folks like the National COSH and President Biden is silent on the needed minimum federal oversight. Sort. Over and out. Have a good day. Don't fuck with injured workers. And my union friend, I strive to get in here. I was a scab for years, and I spent the last 15 years of my working career in the unions. I was a union shop steward. So it is very frustrating to me that you are failing us human beings at this point, and you're failing workers on this issue. Inhumane. And you're violating our human rights. And you got one class harming the others. It's almost oppressive. Yet my own Democrats are not stepping up to the plate to speak about it. Not only are they not stepping up to speak about it, they're trying to silence men like me who are trying to tell the truth. And that's why I'm still perplexed, is why did my Democrat hand us a solution, stopping a class war on America's injured workers like myself and my father and my father-in-law, and then everybody goes silent? Was it to trip and fuck with our heads? That's what I'm curious. I want to know, National COSH, why you're silent as a man with mental health conditions has begged for your help. And his mental health therapist in CMAR tells him, well, you got to sing, as they have a legislative liaison for my mental health people, have a legislative liaison who on National Latino Legislative Day for the state wants to talk about how workers' comp affects Latinos and not to fear you're on the job, reporting you're on the job injuries. Well, that's a lie. And when my health care provider, CMAR, mental health, tell me, oh, well, you're delusional and you got to sing and you got to do this and to get your voice heard and you get your truth heard. But yet, when their legislative liaison, who's supposed to share what's happening to us and their patients with Rick Larson, Representative Rick Larson, U.S. Representative Rick Larson, they failed to put forth and tell him the harm that's done to me. And on Latino Legislative Day, they were there with the state lawmakers. Lillian Ortiz-Self was there, and back then it was Lieutenant Governor Habib, a blind guy, who was there, who has, definitely has some disabilities, yet he too, and that's another thing, the disability community will not step up and fight for injured workers and are needing minimum federal oversight. You go to every one of these Democratic I help disability groups. I tried to reach out to the Democrat disability groups here in the state of Washington. They all slammed their back on it. This is egregious, and it needs to be addressed. And our unions, and Larry Brown, and AFT union, Randy Weidengartner, they all need to speak up and start speaking the truth about a war on injured workers. So you're not amplifying our voices, you're silencing. Have a good day. Oh, I want to add one more thing since I'm here. Jason Call, one of my local representatives, and was also my Democratic PTO, who I begged to put our issues on the table, of course, told me his priorities are whole Washington and Medicare for all in 15 hours, but not your injured workers issue. You called me unhinged. Here's your unhinged. All canned up, all polished, and handed back to you, sir, and our revolution, Tyler Vega. You people need to get honest. Because being dishonest with us and telling us, gee, I can't get honest, like uphill progressive media, and Joy Savage all tell us uphill progressive media and all that progressive liberal left, tell us our candidates can't get honest or they won't get elected. Well, you keep not getting elected. You rainbows, you keep not getting us the rainbows, yet you keep telling us our candidates can't get honest so they won't get elected or we won't get Medicare for all. Well, you haven't got none of your issues, yet you still have never helped the injured workers as they beg for you, and you silenced us. You drowned us out with the Medicare for all screams, louder screams for that than America's injured workers could cry for a minimum federal standing. You threw us under the progressive ship to die. President Biden, step up to the plate, man up, and get the job done. Minimum federal standards for injured workers, and more importantly, another national workers' comp commission. If fucking Nixon could do it, sir, you sure as hell could do it. If not, you're both fucking crooks. Have a good day.